Hi, everyone. I'm Marie Mulcahy from Lindenmeyr Paper, for those that don't know me. It's been a while in the paper world since we've had some good news. So I thought I would follow up John and Kyle's remarks earlier this morning and give some recent industry statistics. The printing and writing paper shipments increased 8% in September compared to September of 2023. Year to date, it's up 4%. The increase in the growth was in all three categories: uncoated freesheet, coated freesheet, and uncoated groundwood. And the uncoated freesheet operating rates in September were at 93% compared to 81% in September of last year. And just keep in mind, the numbers are adjusted based on this year's capacity reductions. So let's keep this momentum going. Meet our panel. To my right is Tina Moylan, who is the Director of Inkjet Specialty Products at Pixelle Specialty Solutions. Dave Elovich, who is the Territory Manager at Sustana. And then Charlie DelVecchio, Vice President, Publication and Book Papers at Birch. So I was going to just ask everybody to just give a little bit of introduction about yourself and your role at your company. Tina?
Hello, everyone. I'm with Pixelle, and I have been in the business for 43 years, starting straight out of college with what was Gladfelter paper as a chemist, and working there for 20 years, and then stepping out and being an independent representative for offshore mills, Com Paper Group and Ziegler Paper for another, 15. And I just came back to Gladfelter/Pixelle in the last 7 to lead their entree into inkjet papers. So that's where I spend my life now, inkjet papers, digital papers.
David Elovich. I've worked for this paper mill for 18 years. It started out as Cascades. It's a 3-machine paper mill, uncoated free sheet, recycled, up in Saint Jerome, Quebec, just outside Montreal. Started as Cascades, then went to purchased by a private equity firm, became Roland. I'm using the French accent, and then became Sustana. We went through a rebranding, so we're now known as Sustana. Before that, I'm a 4th generation in the printing industry with a family printing company in Connecticut. As a territory manager, I take care of all the Northeast sales through our merchant partners.
I'm Charlie DelVecchio, White Birch Paper. Despite my youthful appearance, I've been in the business for 42 years. I started in New York City with Boise Cascade back in the early 80s, selling book and magazine paper. At that point, Boise had coated publication papers as well as coated free sheet and book papers. So we sold that for a while. I went through the subsequent merger, acquisition, staff reduction stuff with the subsequent companies, Rainy River, Stone Consolidated, Abitibi, Bowater, and finally Resolute. And after 30 years with Resolute, there was a headcount reduction, and I became a head. So shortly after that, I wound up with White Birch Paper with the mandate to help them grow their book business, which is what I've been doing for the last 6 years.
Okay, great. Thank you. We're going to get started with the questions. The first is, it can be very challenging, selling into the book publishing market with, last-minute TikTok or book talk bestsellers, not evenly loaded. It's not monthly business, and highs and lows in quantities. So let's start with Tina. As a primary supplier to the book business already, what does it take to be a sustainable supplier to the book market, meaning moving forward in the future?
I think the key thing is a diversification in your product portfolio, a combination of specialty products as well as offset types of products, commodity products. If you have that focus, as well as really staying close to your end users and being tuned into the evolving technology so that you can adapt and be nimble. I can't necessarily say that we are the most nimble company, but the awareness of where the market's going, where you need to be, is really where we are now in terms of focusing on future applications, trends in technology, and looking at more innovative service solutions for our customer base.
Great. Dave, Sustana is in a unique position. In addition to supplying paper at the front end of a book, you also offer service at the back end or the end cycle of a paper. Do you want to explain?
Yeah, I'll explain. And I have a recent story. So the reason we went through a rebranding is we purchased a recovery company. So part of our pulp is furnished sorted office waste or printer's waste, which we clean and create new pulp that we put through the paper machine. So it's 100% recycled pulp that we create. But we need furnished from printers, converters, offices, schools. So we bought this company. It was called Hannah Paper about a year ago. And so we've been given the directive to go out with the salespeople of this recovery company. And one of the salespeople in upstate New York says, "Hey, come with me. I'm going to Oswego or SUNY Oswego because the library is being renovated and they have 30,000 old books they wanted to have pulped." And so I went with them, and sure enough, we went down to the basement and surveyed all these racks of books. And it turns out that we can take these books and repulp them as whole books. And I was always under the impression that you had to break off the spine of the book and sort it by groundwood versus free sheet. But he informed me that when they make these bales of recycled paper, they can mix in books with every bale and still come up with a recycled pulp. So it was a very interesting concept, and I learned quite a bit about recycling paper and books.
Awesome. Charlie, as a newsprint producer, how do book papers complement White Birch's portfolio? And perhaps you want to share what you see as some of the challenges supplying paper into the book market.
Well, like a lot of people, a lot of paper companies, a lot of paper mills in this room, very few of us, with the possible exception of Pixelle, or Gladfilter before that, who's been making book papers forever, very few of us woke up one day and said, "I'm going to make book papers." We in majority fell into the book paper business because there was another product, in our case, newsprint, that was in a significant decline because of the internet, because of electronic media, etc. So as we moved into this business, the book business, the high-bright business for commercial print, became a natural substitution for the newsprint as that continued to decline. What we've been able to do, which is kind of unique because we have multiple machines at the mill we do most of our business at, we are able to do very quick turns with our groundwood papers by substituting for newsprint, which we can make in other locations. So that gives us, we think, a particular advantage over some of our competitors, being able to substitute the high bright grades or book grades for newsprint and keep those machines running at a fairly full rate over time. So that's been a big advantage for us. Part of that, however, is, and I think most of us in this room are kind of subject to this, no one wants to keep inventory anymore. So what we're seeing, particularly now, particularly over the last year, no one has inventory, and so we're getting these very, very rapid turns. Couple 100 tons here, I'd like to deliver next Wednesday. Half a truck there, I'd like to deliver on Tuesday. And where we are located, the mill is literally in downtown Montreal or Quebec City on the water. We have very good backhauls, so we do a lot of truck delivery. 98% of our deliveries are by truck rather than rail. So that gives us a 2 or 3 day turn where some others are significantly longer than that. So those are the things that we're focused on: the quick, efficient turns, and then the ability to substitute newsprint orders with high bright book grade orders.
All right. Good. Okay. To seek savings, publishers have made several changes in their paper selection over the years. We've seen basis weight reductions, transitions from opaque to offset, free sheet to groundwood, uncoated groundwood, and then high brightness uncoated groundwood to low brightness. Where do we go from here? Tina, Pixelle offers both digital and offset papers. Do you see a future where there would be one grade for both applications? And if so, Will the decision to do so be made from a manufacturing standpoint, like larger runs, more efficiency, or to reduce SKUs or SKUs for the end user?
Ideally, I think we'd like to have a universal product, but it's not realistic at this point in time, basically because of the ink chemistry on the offset side. It's so much more variable. So at this point, it's really the universal product is probably more so the offset products that are going into graphic arts, uncoated, and commercial coated papers, and where the OEMs are able, with their chemistry and technology now, to run those papers versus the flip side, where there are an inkjet product would be universally accepted and running on offset platforms. We would like to and are very interested in establishing some beta work, and we've been working with a few OEMs to kind of explore this area. But I'm at the end of the day, an inkjet product, if we customized it, let's say for Maple and for Jim, and customized it to his chemistry, although he has the same OEM platform on his digital side, it may not necessarily work for Brandon at Core, just because their offset chemistries could be different. So that's where it could become a little bit touchy, but we still would like to embark on that. So that would be the kind of first part of your question. Then the second part was, and I'm just going to repeat it again, please.
Just if you're moving in that direction, would the decision be from the mills in terms of manufacturing? Like, we know the runs are getting smaller, so would it be an effort to make longer runs, make you more efficient? Or is it really driven by the customer?
Ideally, depending on our asset. And that's what we have to look at, is which, we have large and small assets. We have to decide whether, and we are always looking to consolidate for run efficiency. So that is an objective, but we also need to listen to the voice of the customer. And that's the value of our operation, is the fact that we do have a range of assets, and we do have the potential to manufacture products in both mills. Not necessarily, they should be mirror images of each other, but all paper mills or paper machines have their own fingerprints. So those of you in the room know that it doesn't always work out like that. But at the end of the day, the goal, it wouldn't be driven so much by operational efficiency in this market. It would really be driven by customer demand.
Okay. Charlie, we're going to skip over to you. Do you see further standardization in groundwood offerings, or will it be an organic transition given mill minimums and trim?
I think, as Tina just said, the customer, the publisher, the printer gets a big say in whatever efficiencies we try to bring to the table. One of the big ones we've worked on is SKU reductions. We have, in a 35-pound basis weight, for example, and I know some of the competitors are in the room are the same position. You've got a 3.2, 3.3, 3.0, 3.5 caliper in the same basis weight. We'd love to see it go to 1, so that we're not having to change caliper of the paper as we're running on the machine. But there are publishers, there are editorial people, there are production people in various publishers and at various printers who feel they have to have that specific SKU. Now, we have reduced SKUs over time. That's been a big deal because, as Tina said, as Marie alluded to, more consistent runs, larger, more consistent runs, obviously, we all know that's much more efficient. We can do at the mill, and I know most of our competitors do the same thing. There can be 3 or 4 grade changes a day. And every time you make a grade change, depending upon whether you're doing brightness, shade, basis weight caliper, you can dump 2 trucks worth of paper into the sewer as you get to that basis weight caliper combination. Because in the book business, a shade variation results in a zebra book, which nobody wants and is typically a rejection. And a zebra book is when you get different shades on the face of the book. You can see different shades of that same paper within that book, which is not appreciated. And then obviously consistent basis weight and caliper. That's the other thing that we are much more efficient at with a larger run. We can on it, run it, and it stays that way for a day in some cases. But again, the way the world is turning now, shorter runs are the norm, quick turns are the norm. And as much as we'd like to eliminate SKUs, and as much as we have, there are still roadblocks to getting that to the point where I think all of us would like it.
Charlie, let me stay with you 1 second. For those publishers that are using groundwood in hardcover books, it looks like we're down to 40 pound and primarily like a 70 bright. Are we going to go lower? And then I guess really from
There's
the
a value proposition and a perception issue with the basis weight. For those of us who have been in this a while, way back, and I'll say 20 years ago, all hardcover books and a lot of your softcover trade format books were on free sheet. And when you pick up a 400-page book on 50-pound free sheet, there is some heft and implied value to that feeling. When you reduce from 50 or 55 pound to 40 pound, there's quite a different feel to that book. And if you're a person who buys a book and puts it on a bookshelf and it hangs out there for a couple years, the uncoated free sheet product looks pretty much the same. The groundwood product changes a little bit. It just reversion over time. And an interesting kind of sidelight to that, and where's David? They used to do the Reader's Digest condensed books way back when, were printed on 70 bright groundwood that no one really knew was groundwood because they gilded the head and the face of the book. So when you put it on a bookshelf and it had the nice binding and the gold leaf in the back, nobody, when they picked up the book, said, "Oh my God, the paper's changed. It looks brown." Well, with the gold leaf on it, you didn't know that. And they were one of the first people to actually use groundwood in a hardcover book. Can we go lower in basis weight? Again, value proposition. People will try. We have 35-pound paper that goes into trade paperback. But I think for hardcover, if someone thinks they can charge $25 for a book that weighs like a feather, God bless them and good luck. I don't know that that's something that's going to be accepted. My opinion.
I guess that's why we've seen in the news that a lot of the independents are saying they're having difficulty selling the hardcover books, and more publishers are going to paperback for the first editions.
The groundwood grade, as opposed, and again, bear in mind now, I'm not going to say the majority, but there are a lot more books now printed on groundwood grades from all the suppliers than has ever been before. One of the things that drove that was COVID and the shortages of paper that came up. A lot of publishers, a lot of printers were forced to look at grades that they had never considered before because they couldn't get their preferred substrate. As a result, a lot of people tried groundwood or lesser quality free sheet grades, hybrid grades, and they found that it's a useful and acceptable substitution for the uncoated free sheet. And the uncoated free sheet market is seeing some of that as we see some of these shutdowns. Machines that used to do 50-pound offset with caliper, a lot of them aren't around anymore.
Dave, in Sustana, specifically EnviroBook, it's a product that has 3 basis weights and just 1 finish, so it's a limited offering. You also have an offset and opaque, inkjet, trade book, on small assets. So do you see further consolidation on grade categories?
I do. I think in the trade book, it's going to stay the 50, 55 pound, 60 pound recycled. I think in the inkjet and textbook industry, where the lighter weight inkjet papers are becoming more prevalent, I think that's going to change to be, focus in on one particular basis weight for that particular application. So,
do you want to add anything, Tina?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, right or wrong, our company has managed the market, these markets as silos. So, we have our publishing products, we have our inkjet products, commercial print, and then we have converting products. And so many of them are very, very similar. They're on the same assets, the larger assets for sure. So we have already behind the scenes started to do some consolidation, which has not been evident, I think, to our customer base. But we are now embarking on basically looking at the publishing, commercial print, and digital product lines to see where we can find their synergies. And there will be a consolidation, probably a mirroring of untreated and treated inkjet in, say, offset and book, untreated and treated, so that there's some parallels there in the different shades to Marie, the white as well as cream. So we will be talking to our customer base to get more feedback on where we can find some of their synergies, but it makes sense for us. And then the next step is we're looking at mill-to-mill integration of our production assets, because we can make these products across 2 different mills and multiple machines, but every machine has its own fingerprint. And those of you in the audience can see those different fingerprints when we do shift machines, everything from shade, consistency from mill to mill, or even within a mill, depending on die packs and things like that. So we have our work cut out for us, but the reality is for us to be flexible and be able to support the market, we need to be able to make same products in 2 different mills and on multiple machines.
Okay, great. There have been tremendous challenges, headwinds to the paper mills over recent years, from inflationary input costs, whether it be pulp, chemicals, labor, freight, energy, and just plain supply chain issues. So, Dave, let's start with you. Will you touch upon how the evolving technologies, specifically, I think the inkjet presses, right, have presented challenges to Sustana?
And I think, Tina, you referred to it. Our assets in our mill, the mill began in 1882. So the paper machines, our newest paper machine is 60 years old. It has limited amount of automation as far as controls on it. So you're asking an old paper machine to produce paper that's running on a very modern inkjet piece of equipment. And that does put a challenge on our millwrights and our mill people to create paper that can be used on modern equipment. So there is a dichotomy or a disconnect between modern machinery that's printing it and paper machines that are very old and need work. Tina,
do you agree with that from your inkjet experience?
I do. At this point now, do you want me to jump into the people side of it?
Oh, sure. All right. Well, should I lead with the question? Okay. So in Pixelle's Chillicothe mill, they fell victim, like a number of other manufacturing facilities, and lost a very high percentage of senior and experienced workers, or talent, really. So we were wondering how it affected productivity and how Pixelle is and has approached the challenge.
We lost 40% of our workforce in Ohio as a result of pensions and interest rate changes, and people chose to retire earlier than planned because of this anomaly. And we are feeling the pinch. It's as a result, and it's been very, very challenging because we haven't been able to replace that workforce locally, and we've pulled in people from Pennsylvania. As we've transitioned through the last 2 years, we now are going back and rehiring some of the expertise. We have consultants on board, and these consultants basically have said the area to highlight and focus on first and foremost is the maintenance area. As you basically said, maintenance is key. Where in the past with experienced workers and shift supervisors, something might correct and detect may have taken an hour to take a machine down, address what needed to be fixed, and bring it back up. Now it may take 4 hours, 8 hours, an entire day is lost. And because we don't have that experience to, number one, identify what the issue might be, and then number two, correct it. So that's just part of it. But there's more to it for us in the bigger picture, because we've been struggling also with the fact that Gladfelter determined that they were going to basically spin off and sell the assets, our assets. They stopped investing in core maintenance that needed to be done on a regular basis for our machine maintenance, as well as parts and in our storerooms to be able to fix things on demand. So that we are now kind of paying for the sins of the past, if you will, that we basically have had to make up that difference by not maintaining our equipment appropriately. Even though we have annual maintenance shutdowns and everything, it's coming back to roost in a bigger way and causing us more downtime. So again, more consultants and adopting a Kaizen approach to really looking at the process and trying to determine, how do we correctly and adequately just target that particular issue and put it to bed so that we can move on to the next problem and continue to improve the process. And we are seeing the result of that. And I have one more story, and I guess it would fit here, Marie. You can tell me if it doesn't, but It's just an example. The workforce, in our Spring Grove mill, we run 3 shifts. Our workforce works 7 days a week. They swing backwards. There's no 4th swing shift. So it's a very demanding process. We're having a challenge finding people that want to work, and we're trying to evolve on a machine by machine basis to a 4 shift process so that we are, we have more luck in terms of pulling in the regular workforce from our region. But there's simple things like that we don't think about now. We've learned our new employees don't know how to read a ruler. When the width of some of our paper machines are older, and we set our slitters, and you measure with the ruler, and 17.375 doesn't mean anything to someone coming out of school. They didn't learn how to read a ruler. So we've had to come up with work aids basically to say, this is the width, and this translates to this, and actually have sticks that are cut to the lengths and everything, and just things we all take for granted. In this room, I think all of us know how to read rulers.
Hope so. Charlie, White Birch had a supply chain issue with a key ingredient. Will you please share the story and also explain how it affected White Birch's ability to make that product?
When I first came over to White Birch 6 years ago, we were making an 84 brightness, 100% groundwood product, similar to Norbright, Jack, and Equal Offset. But we didn't have a coating application or a coating roller to do that. So we used internal sizing and a special kind of clay that we got from Georgia. Right before COVID, the supplier in Georgia told us they were no longer interested in shipping to Canada because of the difficulties crossing the border, etc. And they basically ceased and desist shipping to us with very little notice. We were able to source a similar product in Europe, but at that time, it went on boats. And if we all remember how boats were going back before COVID and after COVID, it became a challenge to get everything to show up on time. And as we scheduled a paper machine, we're scheduling certain runs at certain times to take advantage of the sequencing of the brightnesses, basis weights, and calibers. Long story short, it became very inefficient, very difficult to manage. And as a result of that, we exited that 84 brightness business. Was a shame because we did very well on it, but it was very expensive to do and very inefficient on the paper machines. And the decision was made rightly to exit that product. But it was a challenge product we had sold. We had worked hard to develop the market for it. And then it went away. So it was very frustrating to the customers, very frustrating to the mill people who had worked on it, and obviously to the salespeople who had sold it.
Thank you. The next question is about EUDR. We are not going to spend a lot of time on this question as the next panel will be addressing this. The good news is the European Council has agreed to back the Commission's proposal to postpone the implementation for 1 year. I think we're just waiting for a vote, which I think is 13th, 14th, something like that by Parliament. So many publishers are, though, even with the delay, looking to have mills become compliant sooner than later. So how is your company facing the challenges? Dave, you want to start?
Sure. Being a 100% recycled paper mill and creating 100% recycled trade book paper, we're not concerned about how the tree has been harvested or where it was coming from. So we really don't have a issue, and we don't have a compliance issue with trade book paper that's recycled. We do make a 30% recycled opaque that uses 70% virgin paper and then 30% post-consumer recycled paper. But most of that paper is not used in the book industry. Most of the trade book paper is 100% recycled. So we really don't have a problem with what's going on.
Okay. Tina, you want to take it next?
From our standpoint, we would like to comply, but it is a challenge. And I think that at this point, we're glad that there's been a reprieve in terms of timing, but and ultimately, we're going to do everything we can to try to be compliant. But it will be challenging for us. There's no doubt about it.
Charlie, what you got?
We're a little different, I think, and more by accident than by design. One of the things we learned as this EUDR became a bigger and bigger topic of conversation for everybody, we use a lot of biomass at our mill. And like David said, we don't own woodlands. We use chips and byproducts from sawmills and other wood products businesses. So we're bringing a lot of wood into the mill in chip form from 80 different suppliers, as well as the biomass. Now, within the biomass, apparently, no one really knew this until a few months ago, within the province of Quebec in Canada, if you're using biomass, you have to be able to geolocate your sources. And we already had the ability to do that because of the biomass we use. So it was a fairly, I don't want to say easy, but a less difficult transition for us to say, okay, this is what we do here. We think we can do it over there. And we've been able to do that pretty successfully. We haven't been asked by the EU or any customers yet to actually put it on paper, show the shipping manifest, and there's a certain document that you have to use, a GOJ something that the EU requests. But we feel we're in pretty good shape to do it. But I think as we've talked, and I've had a conversation with a few people in this audience over the last 24 hours, everybody's thinking about it. Everybody has a different point of view at how it may or may not work. The big concern now for us is, let's face it, the European Union is nothing if not capricious in their decision making, and they could change everything. They could make it harder. They could make it easier, but it will happen at some form in the next year. The other thing to consider, not unlike regulations in California, this is going to migrate. And so I would not be surprised if a year from now, we're not sitting at this meeting talking about this kind of process being required by publishers in North America for paper consumed in North America. Because again, this kind of stuff tends to migrate.
Thank you. Historically, mills have done everything possible to keep paper machines running rather than take downtime. For some mills, this model, for lack of a better phrase, has changed. I guess, Tina, do you want to start? Pixelle is an integrated mill with 2 locations, several paper machines that make book grades as well as non-book grades. How does this affect or influence management's decision?
Fundamentally, since we are an integrated pulp producing paper mill, our goal is to continue to run. We don't choose to take downtime. It's more challenging if you take downtime. Short spurts of downtime on machines is something we can manage, but to take a facility down or part of a facility down means it's also taking our pulp mills down. So, our goal is to continue to run and operate. And right now we have a self-sustaining backlog because we've had some challenges in the last 2 years. It's our own propagated backlog for the most part. But we are running on fumes when it comes to inventory too. We don't have time to make inventory either. So it's been challenging. We'd like to have a little bit of a break to be able to make some inventory to support our markets. But at the same time, we were when the market was tight before, we were one of the only companies in North America that brought an asset back online. We invested $25 million to bring 24 paper machine back online with a 50% contract for that 75,000 tons with a specialty customer or market. And we weren't able to sustain it. We took it offline in early 2023, but our intention still is to run that machine again. So for us, that particular market that we contracted with to start that machine has in the products and the volume has infused onto all of our machines. So we have been balancing, maintaining 35,000 tons across machines that weren't intended to make those products. At the same time, we're making our standard products. So that, along with some fires and other things that have taken us down, has made it quite a challenging year. But in the overall scheme of things, our goal is to basically have 24 paper machine up and running again, and also to continue to grow our specialty markets. So that's the challenge we have in terms of balancing it. We have specialty products that are growing. If in fact we see a lull in the market demand for our printing and writing grades, chances are, people are still eating Reese's peanut butter cups, and we're making the brown peanut butter cup fluted liner on the same paper machine where we make Doug Gask's cream publishing grade. So, at this point, it's, we have a lot of flexibility, and our specialty products are infused across all of our assets. And there's a lot of work going on in Ohio too. So there's a segment of our business that's just kind of waiting for the opportunity to get a commitment for the machine time. And the challenge we have is we have to maintain a certain margin level to justify staying on that paper machine. So if things start to fall out of alignment with the margin, you can be susceptible to being displaced on a machine if we're running full. So there's a balance there. But the good news is
there's good news. Like we're getting
the trade, the digital book publishing, inkjet. Anything that falls into this category is considered a specialty. So we still prioritize it, and it is part of our long-term strategy. But the foundation of specialty products as well as with Gladfelter, now with Pixelle, has always been one of the reasons we've been very stable through weak markets, because we can turn some of those switches on.
Dave, your experience, or really at Sustana, has been you've done both, right? Running full out and also taking downtime, select downtime.
Right.
You want to explain how both turned out?
Yeah, that's a good point. So last year, 2023, we took more downtime than I can remember in the 18 years, almost twice a quarter. And as Tina was mentioning about employment and some of the older paper machine operators retiring, coming back from a downtime, a week downtime, took more and more time because of the inexperience of the operators. So this year we've changed the whole philosophy and decided no downtime, fill the mill, run it, and we've achieved better results. But last year was a learning experience because of this lack of experience. So I would encourage people to increase your training budgets, whether you're in printing or paper, because training is a very important element in keeping people up to date on how to operate pieces of equipment.
Okay, Charlie, how difficult is it for White Birch to take downtime, now take time? Is it select, do you choose to do it, not? And then you and I had a conversation about, if you're privately held or publicly held, and how that may influence the decision.
Well, I think we're all familiar over the last several months with the, the concept of quiet quitting. People stay employed, they do the least minimum possible job they can, but they continue to do their thing. There's a lot of quiet downtime being taken across our businesses. Now, a big driver to that is, and this is the point that Marie and I were talking about, I don't think, and I could be missing something, and if you think of it, let me know. I don't think there are any publicly traded companies remaining in the book publishing or book paper space. And as we all know, if you're a public company, you take an action that is potentially an impact to earnings, you have to make an announcement. Privately held companies do not have to do that. And as a result, there are a lot of decisions being made to take purposeful decisions, to take downtime rather than run to inventory, rather than run to price, to try and get that last 2 days of the week full so you can say you ran the week full and everybody's happy, except you lost $100 for every roll of paper that walked out of the mill or rolled out of the mill. One of the big, I'll call it safety valves, has been export. If you look at the numbers for export for any of the product lines that people use in this room, the numbers, for the most part, particularly in newsprint, are way up. India, South and Central America, the Middle East used to be hotbeds, let's call it that, but they are very willing partners for paper exported from North America. And as we look at our business, it used to be said that, the majority of the paper that we sold at White Birch went to North American end uses. It's no longer the case. We're about 60% offshore now. Now, part of that is driven by what's going on here. We have a safety valve, and a lot of these end-use markets are spot or opportunistic. But we are putting a lot of paper, and others are, if you're situated in a place where you have access to a deep water port, things are going offshore as a safety valve to downtime, as a safety valve to price cuts. And I think that's one of the things we're going to see in the year ahead. We all know what happened between 2020 and 2023 on price. We're not supposed to talk about price, and I'm not going to. But what's left of that move up, people are going to hold on to. And I think that's going to be the thing to watch in the year ahead, is people taking strategically considered downtime to manage their backlogs so that they don't have to do silly price moves to fill the machine or even export to fill the machine. Keep in mind, the way the world is now, we can ship a truck of paper or a container of paper to the UK, to Rotterdam, to Bremerhaven for less money than I can roll a truck of paper down Highway 81 to Atlanta right now. Now, those containers are coming this way full. They got to get them back. So ocean freight, it's an opportunity if you want to do that. But again, you have to be situated efficiently close to a deep water port, or on the other side of the coast there, Jack, a deep water port in the West Coast going the other way. But, I think downtime is going to continue to, short answer to your question, it's going to continue to be a strategic option for everybody to manage the business and to ensure that inventories aren't being built or price is not being eroded unnecessarily.
Well, you sort of jumped to the last question, right? The last question, which I think is on everybody's mind right now, is what's your crystal ball for 2025, which Charlie sort of gave his answer already. Is there more?
Should I go again?
All right, take two.
I think the big thing, we talked about price, we'll leave that alone. I think consolidation and conversion within the paper business is something we're all going to have to be watching. There are old machines in the newsprint world that are going to go away. Marie mentioned it, opening the capacity to utilization numbers. Newsprint's running at 81, 83% right now. That's way, way lower than is sustainable for the business. Uncoated free sheets running 93%, but as Marie correctly pointed out, that's primarily because there's been 3 machines converted or taken offline in the last 18 months. So it's real, yes, but it's real because machines have come offline. So I think across our businesses, the consolidation or conversion, be it brown paper, be it other products that those mills can make, is going to be part of the environment we play in.
Go ahead, you have the mic.
Okay. So this year, we achieved some good results because we produced a lot of ballot paper for the election. And the Olympics is a significant event where there's quite a bit of advertising going out. Maybe not so much printed, but still advertising budgets. Next year is still a question mark. We don't know. There's no significant event, but hopefully the book business stays strong from the people that we've listened to earlier today, and that it stays about the same. That's what we're looking forward to.
Tina?
2025, as far as, I totally agree with my colleagues up here. As long as the capacity stays focused and online, it'll be status quo. The market right now isn't very strong, so I think it'll be at this pace and holding. But I'm bullish and optimistic about about inkjet and digital in 2025 for publishing, because there are more and more installs coming focused on this market segment. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity for everyone in this room in regard to the digital side of the business. So I'm bullish for the market segment.
Awesome. Well, we're concluding our panel now. Thank you guys for joining us and giving us your thoughts and comments. Then we can open up for questions.
Hey, Charlie, Brandon Nowak from Thomson Reuters. You mentioned that 60% of your volume you're offshoring right now. If that volume is needed back stateside or North America, would that come back, or do you have better margins still offshore?
No. The margins, as I said, the offshoring that's happening now is opportunistic. It's a safety valve. Certainly, if things improve here, we'd more than be happy to bring it back. But as we all know, I mean, the offshore marketplace for the printers over the last couple of years and publishers has been kind of a haven. It's been cheap. I mean, we sat here 2 years ago and had one of the publishers tell us that the day of arguing over 25 cents for an order was over, and he wanted sustainable, consistent, reliable supply chains. And 6 months after that, he was back in China. So, I mean, it's a safety valve. It ebbs and flows, and this will be the same thing.
All right.
Great.
Thank you very much, guys.
you.
That was awesome.